Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to Bicycling Lunch and Learn. We're going to talk about e-bikes today, and I'm going to turn this over to Tess Woods from Bike Indianapolis to tell you more.
Hi, I'm Tess Woods with Bike Indianapolis, and as Connie said, this is the Cycle Commuter Task Force Lunch and Learn, and today we're talking about e-bikes, which is really fun. If you're not familiar with the Cycle Commuter Task Force, it is a collaborative effort between Bike Indianapolis, Central Indiana Biking Association, which is also known as CIBA, Commuter Connect, and Bicycle Garage Indy. So before we go into that and e-bikes, I'm going to turn this over to Connie because she has a couple things that she wants to mention about some upcoming events that are really fun.
Yeah, so anybody who's gone through the intersection of the Monon and 86th Street knows that it could use some safety improvements. And so we are doing, we as in Nora Alliance, Bicycle Garage Indy, community organizations, and individuals are volunteering to put in some temporary installation of safety, testing out some safety ideas at that intersection. And we start tomorrow. And if you want to help out, I will put a link in the chat and you can go to the page where you can sign up to volunteer for that. And we're going to be putting in rumble strips and painting sidewalks and doing a lot of fun stuff. So the other thing is there's some exciting, and this is really short term if you're getting this today, as in June 13th, because today is the deadline to sign on to a letter of support for a City of Indianapolis application for federal funds. And the federal funds what they're applying for is a bridge at the Monon and 86th Street, as well as a bridge at Nickel Plate and 82nd Street, so that people can get across there when the trail is built, as well as a multi-use trail that runs along 86th, 82nd Street, connecting those, and expansion of bike share into the Castleton area. So a really cool connectivity project that they are applying for federal funds from. So the letter of support is due today. So if you get a chance, you can go online, and I'll put the link for that as well. And, so that is the two things that I wanted to mention. And then we have another activity next week that Tess is going to talk about.
That's right. And then we'll get to the e-bikes. I forgot to mention that we do have an active transportation meetup that we do during the summer. And our first one starts next week on June 20th. And we'll be meeting at Amelia's Windsor Park, which is on Noland, at 8 a.m. And usually it's just a really casual get together, ride your bike there. You meet other fellow cyclists that are commuting to work. If you have time, we always do a ride at the end of that meetup. This will be at 9, and we'll ride on Pogues Run, and that's a new trail that's really been expanding as well. So it'll be fun to check that out. So we invite you all to join us for that. We do have an event. So if you need more information, it's on Bike Indianapolis's website or Facebook as well, if you want to check out more details about that and RSVP. So let's go ahead and jump into our speakers. Excited to have three really interesting and avid cyclists here to talk about e-bikes. And first, I want to introduce Jesse Brown, who's our Indianapolis City County Council member, and who also is who loves biking and is relatively new. Is that true, Jesse, to biking? Okay, let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'd say very new. Thanks, Tess, and thanks, Connie. Thanks, everybody, for helping set this up. Yeah, so my name is Jesse Brown, and I serve 38 years old, and I'm a first-time politician just as of January 1st. I'm the elected representative for District 13, which includes actually that Amelia's Windsor Park and the new Pogues Run Trail that I ride on all the time. So I'm glad folks will be in the district and seeing how much cool stuff is going on. But yeah, I am a relatively recent cyclist. I was actually didn't learn to ride my bike until I think I was like 12. I was still using training wheels. So was like the nerd who sat inside reading books or playing video games, never really got outside, never really rode to friends' houses as a kid. And it was honestly only having an e-bike, which I just got 13 months ago or so, that has really unlocked my love of cycling and my ability to like ditch the car and get out of the house and visit places a lot more often. And so for any lunch and learn, I always feel like it's, well, let's put it this way. I'm a politician. I could talk all day, so I'm trying really hard not to and to keep my comments pretty short. But I'm happy to go into more detail if there's questions or thoughts around any of these. But I had 3 buckets of information kind of I wanted to spew out here at the beginning. One, I think of in terms of politics. A second is sustainability and resilience. And then a third is health and fitness. And so I'll start with the politics, and keep in mind I'm a politician, so I see things through that lens quite easily, but you might find that politics is something that you could participate in as well, thanks to bikes and particularly e-bikes. So I've talked about this before at other events, but cycling around my neighborhood, my district, has been the best way to meet constituents or to catch up quickly with a constituent in a way that a car just could never match, right? So you can't really roll down your window in a car and have anything more than a, hey, Joe, as you're biking by. But you can quickly hit the brake in a bike lane, have a 30-second conversation, and then zip along your way without making it, without making yourself late to your next appointment, but still having a real important connection point with a constituent, which in your world you might call a friend or neighbor. There also allows you to have a much closer inspection of streets and alleys and potholes, which again, whether you are a politician whose job it is to fix these things, or whether you are a concerned neighbor who just wants to work to try to fix up problem properties, or gosh, the older person who lives on the corner hasn't mowed their grass, someone maybe should check in and see that they're okay. When you're moving by at car speeds, you don't really have the opportunity to follow up on thoughts like that. Whereas with an e-bike, you can quickly stop, knock on the door, or create a fake cone or big rock to put over a pothole to stop people from blowing out an axle hitting it. There's lots of ways that you can just in a few seconds really take action in your neighborhood and make the world a better place. Yeah, that's a little cringe to say, but it's true. And it also helps me as a politician because as much as I hate it, I'm a t-shirt and Birkenstocks and all weather sort of guy naturally, fit in very well in the tech bro world I came from. But now that I am a politician, I have to put on, blazers and ties more often than I would like. And even in like today is going to be 90 degrees, but I can put on a suit jacket and a tie, and thanks to an e-bike, not be incredibly, incredibly sweaty when I get to my meeting. So when you don't have to switch clothes before an event, it makes it a lot more accessible to take a non-car form of transit to get there. Same is true in the winter. I can throw on an extra layer of smart wool underneath my suit and still bike with my e-bike, get to an event without looking like I'm still in cyclist gear and dressing in cosplay or something. And then the most recent and most fun political advantage of riding an e-bike is that, especially around rush hour, I've noticed I'm faster on my bike than in a car. If I'm trying to get someplace downtown, or there was a couple weeks ago, I was coming from Recycle Force in my district at like 10th and Sherman down to the southeast side for a Parks Department meeting, Parks Committee on the City Council. And me and one of my peers left at the same time. I was on my e-bike, she was in her car, and I got there 5 minutes before she did, just because it's quicker to zip through traffic. I can pedal a little harder and make sure to make it. I don't have to wait in line behind cars thanks to bike lanes that aren't all that well overused yet. So it actually can save time. I'll mention this later, but also protects from road rage. So I'm already going a little long, so I'll try to speed it along a bit. But second main bucket of things that are just bringing joy to my life from my e-bike are how they impact sustainability and resilience. So I can't highly recommend enough looking into solar panels. I recently, my wife and I put solar panels on our house, and the economics of that, thanks to some federal grants, it was okay. It's going to take a while to pay back the panels. It's more just because we're hippy dippy do-gooders than because it's saving us a ton of money in the short run, until you factor in the cost of a car compared to the cost of an e-bike that you charge for free when you just plug it in during the daytime, right? So in Indiana, you can't sell back your solar energy to AES or to any of your electric providers and get the full rate that they're going to charge other people for it. So you have strong incentives if you're producing your own power to use that power when and where you can. The battery on my e-bike, I have a Rad Power Rad Rover that's really awesome. It stores a decent amount of electricity, and my e-bike has USB plugs, so I can use my bike to power my phone, if it's now nighttime and I don't have solar power and I don't want to pay AES the ridiculous price they charge. So the economics get better and better. The more, I don't want to deplete all the lithium in the world just for my personal use. I have concerns about that, but it is what it is. Right now, I can't afford to spend 15 grand on a huge battery backup for my solar system, but I can afford an e-bike, which has a decent sized battery that again powers other things. And the real benefit of having an e-bike, my wife and I still share one car. We haven't, gone down to a zero car lifestyle. But really, it's very rare that between an e-bike and a car, or actually she has her own e-bike, we can almost always get where we need, and there's not a big conflict over the car. And when we compare the cost that a lot of my constituents and neighbors are talking about, even a used car right now, we're just saving just immense amounts of money that really changes the economics again on the solar, changes the economics on a lot of our home efficiency needs. Final bucket is health and fitness, right? So again, I'm the nerdy, scrawny kid who didn't have enough balance to sit on a bike at 12 years old. I'm noticing my sense of balance improve immensely, even with my Rad Rover, it has tires this thick. It's designed for people who are clumsy as hell, and still I don't fall off. But I'm also improving my balance. I'm improving my cardiovascular health. I was a person, my doctor tested my vitamin D a couple years ago, and I had less than 10% of a healthy amount. So getting enough sunlight is extremely important for my physical health. Really easy on an e-bike. You only have to have 15 minutes to really get all you need, and that's an easy ride anywhere where you don't even have to sweat that much in the summer. I think it's mental health is huge improvement when you're able to ride your e-bike. You get out of the house more often. Sometimes just it's such a nightmare these days to share a road with cars that when I think about, oh, do I want to go grab a cup of coffee or do something to get outside the house, and I would have to turn the ignition on my internal combustion engine in my car and drive it around and look at the gas tank and notice all the check engine lights that I haven't been able to fix yet. It's incredibly stressful. Or it could just be a really joyful, really quick, don't have to think about it, quick e-bike ride. Just makes me feel satisfied, more agency, more autonomy. And then, the last point I mentioned earlier, road rage is a really scary and seemingly intensifying thing. I very, very rarely feel rage or frustration riding my bike. It's mostly just joy, sun on my face, wind in my face, smiling, seeing neighbors. Makes me feel really good, which I think everybody should try out. So I always tell people, you can tell that I haven't been riding for all that long because I speak with the passion and fervor of a convert to a religion, right? So, I know that like anything, passion for this might fade over time, but, at least get you some of this. And if you aren't riding an e-bike right now, try it. I really think you'll have a blast, and I'm happy to take a ride with you or chat further about this. That's all I had today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I really appreciate all of that. I love your passion and fever for riding bikes. I'm right there with you. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences. Our next person is Toby Holsman. He is with BGI. He's a retail operations. I think that's right. Tell me if I'm wrong, Toby. I'm going to go ahead and let you get going on your story.
Okay, hi everybody. All right, can everybody hear me okay? It's a little bit breezy out here. Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, first off, what you said at the very end there, Jesse, what you said about, can that enthusiasm fade, and can your initial convert, excitement fade on? It can, but it hasn't for me. I've been riding avidly for 25 years now, working at BGI for 21. And I don't know, for some people, it just sticks around, but it takes some different forms. So what I wanted to do right now was to talk about e-bike rider profiles, like people who choose to ride them and why. Trent, can you give me, I believe you're going to talk in some detail about like cargo bike lifestyle. Is that like, give me a thumbs up. Is that like right, wrong, medium? Is that right? Okay. So what I have behind me here is my cargo bike. I probably will forego talking about that bike in too much detail unless anybody is really excited. Maybe we can circle back around to that later if folks are really want to hear more about like my bike and how it works. But what I wanted to talk about more than that was why people ride bikes. I think Jesse, you did a fantastic job of articulating why people ride bikes in general, why it's good for you, why it's good for your community, how it all helps us knit together into a better, like a better world, for lack of a better word. And so I'm going to assume that we don't need to be convinced on this call of like why you should ride a bike, but we get a lot of questions at the shop about why people choose to ride e-bikes or when people choose to ride e-bikes. And what I'd say is, very broadly speaking, it's for anybody who wants to add capability and capability to their riding and adaptability to it. And that can take forms in a lot of different ways. You can have people who want to do something as simple as, I would like to ride to the restaurant that I like going to instead of driving. And that can be what sounds like a pretty small obstacle. Maybe that restaurant is 4 miles away. Well, for most folks, that's like a big, long walk, and they're not necessarily going to do that. They're going to get in their car, they're going to drive 4 miles and go, 8 minutes in the car or whatever that winds up being. And so it feels, normal to do that because, let's face it, the world is set up in an incredibly convenient way to drive a car. Like, driving a car is an incredibly useful and simple thing to do for most people in the modern world. And so if you're going to choose to ride their bike instead of doing that, there can be some pretty obvious barriers to it. Like, how does my bike work? How can I get there? All those kinds of things. And for lots of people, even a 4-mile bike ride can seem like a pretty intimidating thing to do. Whereas for an experienced rider, that might sound like nothing. So what an e-bike can do for those kinds of riders is make it so that's just as casual and simple of an act as getting in your car, turning ignition and driving there, instead of getting my bike out, trying to remember how the gears work, pedaling, with whatever physical ability you have and getting as tired as you get, something as simple as that kind of a ride can have some pretty big obstacles that get a lot easier if you have a bike that lets you get there with low effort and going pretty fast. So you can do it with the time that you want to do it in and with the effort, a minimal amount of effort that would be needed for that. So that's kind of the very most basic, simplest type of e-bike rider, I think. Somebody who just wants to use it for things that are casual. Then you have people who are enthusiastic bike riders already, who maybe don't have the capability they want to have. That could be sometimes because of age. It can be because of injury. It can be because you have 2 riders who want to ride together, but have really different abilities to ride at certain speeds. And so what the e-bike does for you then is allow you to gain the capability to do those things that would be too hard for you to do otherwise. There was a couple, it's probably 5-6 years ago now, who we had seen around the shop for ages, very avid riders. They were getting up in years. And we hadn't seen them for, I don't know, 3-4 years. And I was kind of starting to wonder, oh, do they not like us anymore? Did we do something to alienate them? Did they choose another shop? Because, that happens sometimes. And then one day they showed up and bought e-bikes, and it turned out the answer was that they had just had injury and health problems. And so they just couldn't ride the way they had always wanted to ride anymore. They couldn't do the routes that they loved doing. And when they got through their health problems and injury problems, they started to ride again, but they found their capabilities had diminished. And they were so discouraged by the fact they couldn't go out and do their favorite rides that they just quit. They stopped for a while. And then when the next modern generation of e-bikes came along, there used to be bad e-bikes. Now there are good e-bikes. When these new modern generation of e-bikes came along, all of a sudden they were able to go do those rides and feel that same sense of satisfaction, same, enthusiasm that got out of that. And it changed everything, that they could go out and ride again. And so that started to make a light bulb go on for me about what they could do for you. And so that's another type of rider, somebody who's an enthusiastic rider, wants to use it for recreation, but needs to add capability for one reason or another. And then the utilitarian one, which is kind of where I fell into this, is I loved the notion of being able to ride a cargo bike from place to place. Because there have been cargo bikes for a long time, and there have been e-bikes for a long time, but there haven't necessarily been good e-cargo bikes until fairly recently. So I love the notion of being able to take my small children around in a cargo bike, but living where I do in the suburbs, it was always like a little too far and maybe a little too much work, and it just wasn't going to work out. I just didn't quite have, 2 hours plus of my day every day to pack up and schlep my kids off on a cargo bike that I could ride very slowly from here to there when it's loaded with, 3 individual human beings. And so when the good modern generation of cargo bikes came out, all of a sudden that became possible. My kids were a little too big to fit on the cargo bike at that point, but lots of families do that, especially in places where their radius of activity is relatively small and they can like zip around to their various school, grocery activities, whatever, with their kids on this cargo bike. But for me, where I was at was I would ride my bike to work a lot, my road bike, and I put my Lycra on and all that kind of stuff. But there are lots of days I didn't necessarily want to like get all kitted up and ride fast and be sweaty. And days where maybe I needed to carry some stuff that was a little too hard to carry them, particularly as I've aged a bit and my capabilities in terms of carrying heavy things in a backpack have decreased. I found myself wanting more and more to be able to ride, but to be able to do it and still run the various errands that I run with my car. Because if you're like me, in my 3,000-pound automobile, what I usually carry is myself and a backpack and maybe like a few bags of groceries. So the car can do lots of things, but you don't necessarily need a car to do that, obviously. And so eventually I settled on getting a relatively small cargo bike like this, because now I can do all those kinds of things in a bike that's practical for me. It's compact. It lets me carry between here and on top of here. I can carry a pretty darn big cart of groceries to and from my house and the grocery stores I go to. I can run lots of different kinds of errands. This morning, I brought a leaf blower on the back of that rack right there from my house to here. And I do enjoy thinking about, I hope people are seeing me carrying cool stuff on my bike, which I think Trent is going to have more stuff to say about how to carry cool stuff on your bike. But that type of practical minded rider, to be able to run your errands, do your stuff, and encompass many of the things you would need to do in your car, but without having to activate your car, and then getting all the benefits that Jesse was talking about in terms of what it does for you personally and what it does for the way you interact. So those are some profiles of people. If anybody's interested in hearing me talk about my bike, I'll do that. But if anybody was just wondering about like how you would fit into using an e-bike or how people do that, I just wanted to cover a little bit of the types of people who do that and how they use those things. So that's pretty much it, unless anybody has follow-up questions about the things I was talking about.
Thank you very much, Toby. I really appreciate it. I love all the different ways that you've highlighted on using bikes outside of the normal ways. I like the leaf blower. I wish I could have seen you on with that.
Yeah, I felt super cool. Like it's one of those things that, not everyone would appreciate that, but I'd like to think, man, where's that guy going with his leaf blower?
That's
right. Man, how intriguing. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. All right, well, we'll move on to Trent. Trent Taylor is a Bike Indianapolis volunteer and among a lot of other things, and an avid rider as well.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Trent Taylor. I've had my current electric cargo bike for about 3 years, going on 3 years now, I think. And I'm going to share my screen because I made a little slideshow. I don't know if it'll let me, but we'll try. Okay, can everyone see? Everyone see that okay?
Can now, yeah.
The PowerPoint? All right. So yeah, e-cargo bike action. I play trumpet in a lot of community bands and play French horn too. So some of what I use my cargo bike for is getting to like rehearsals and concerts. I don't do it very regularly. I do often drive to these things, but on occasions where there's a concert close by or somewhere I want to venture out to, then I'll take advantage of it. And I post a lot of pictures of my bike on Instagram, so I just took kind of chronological order from when I got my bike to now. But yeah, so a lot of carrying. This is the Turn GSD, which I got from Bike Garage Indy downtown. bicycle garage Indy downtown. The first one was like down to Greenwood, I rode for a concert. Rode to Garfield Park Amphitheater. I play in the pit at Footlight Musical, so that's me at parking my bike where they don't have parking there, so I just make up a spot on their patio and walk up to. I use it for getting groceries. It was really handy for Kroger click list pickup. You can just pull right up into one of the car spots and they'll bring out everything and you can just load it on your bike. Yeah, more groceries. It comes in handy for the bike to the 500 that Bike Indianapolis has. Bring a cooler full of drinks, ice, bring some folding chairs to sit on and other things that we might need throughout the day while we're out there parking bikes. Bike to the ballpark. One year I used it, brought a folding chair. And then I used it when I left my one job before I used it to bring all my stuff home from my office. So it was able to fit a lot of stuff on there. That might be, no, there's more. Yeah, there's more groceries. So that's about all of the pictures I had. But yeah, I like the e-bike because with the cargo, you can carry a lot of weight on there and I need the batteries to help me get going. This is the kind that when you pedal, it just kind of amplifies your pedaling. It doesn't have a throttle on it. So this one's a class 1 because it goes up to 20 miles per hour and then it cuts off the assistance. It won't help you go faster than that. And yeah, I like that for the weight. I also like it for just regular commuting. Like it's my main commuter bike when I do ride to work, so I don't always have to carry stuff on it. But it, the batteries, the motor, the assist helps cancel out the wind if you're going the opposite direction of the wind. So I like it for that too, because at the end of the day, you might not feel like riding home with a headwind, and it really helps with that. Yeah, kind of going off of what Toby had mentioned about getting it to bike to more places and encouraging people to bike to more places. This might be a little off topic, but people can look at Google Maps and see, they can search bike parking on Google Maps. And I'm going to share that screen too. I did. You can like literally in the search bar type in bike parking or bike racks and then kind of zoom into the area. This is looking over the Circle City Industrial Complex. You can do search this area and it pulls up the locations and then you can pick the flag and then it should have, most of the places have pictures that you can actually look at and see what kind of bike racks they are. Yeah, so that's another tool because when I was thinking about biking to places, that's a big deterrent for me because I know if you drive, you're always going to find parking no matter what. Every place has a place to park your car, but you don't know if where you're going to ride your bike to 4 miles or 5 miles away has bike racks or has good bike racks. So I kind of made this project online and I took pictures of them and found them on satellite images and just trying to catalog all of that, so that's one less obstacle to people biking to locations. And it hasn't been updated in a while, so I think there's a lot of new stuff that has been updated. I never made it up to Broad Ripple, so everything that's in Broad Ripple, there aren't any pictures yet. But yeah, so that's one other tool to like encourage people to bike places. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Yeah, so yeah, I don't bike to work as much where I'm at right now, but I'm hoping to keep using it and keep on occasions where it comes in handy to bike somewhere instead of riding. Like I rode to the Eclipse in Carmel, so I played a concert for that, and I was told traffic's going to be a nightmare. I'm like, okay, well, I think the Monon should be pretty clear, so I used my cargo bike to get up to Monon, and if it weren't electric assist, I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to make that trip myself. Because it was about an hour and a half ride, I think, each way from where I live on the east side. So, yeah, definitely having the batteries encourages me to ride further than I might be comfortable to ride. And, you know, you can get home. I'm worried about like safety, not safety, but like theft. So I always hear, maybe not so much here in India, I don't know, but the channels on YouTube that I follow in New York, they're like, yeah, people will take your batteries. So I'll always try to take the battery off, and I have a backpack that I can keep it in when I go into wherever I'm going. Just so it's not out there to take, because they lock on, but it's not foolproof. Like someone could pry it off with the right tools. I have a really heavy, like 15-pound chain that I use to lock my bike up, and that also adds weight. So having the bike be able to carry it and help you push along helps, kind of a virtuous cycle. Like it'll help protect it and it'll carry it for me. Yeah. And another plug for another event coming up. We have the Irvington neighborhood bike ride that is through Bike Indianapolis. We're going to do that this Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, meeting at the Bonna Thompson Memorial Library, or the Irvington Historical Society is also what it's called. So that's a slow roll through Irvington. It's about 5 or 6 miles, and it's a no drop ride, which is kind of a relaxed like neighborhood ride. Yeah, I think that's about all I had about the cargo bike, the e-cargo bike. But if anyone has any questions, or if Toby, if you had more stuff you said you wanted to talk about still too, because I noticed your bike is the same brand as mine, but a different model.
I mean, really all I want to do is just point at all the things I think are cool and say what it is. I'm not sure if that's like a useful use of everyone's time. If anyone's interested, I'll be happy to say so. But if you're just like, geez, I'm tired of hearing about your bike guy, then we don't have to do that. So. But yeah, it's exactly that one. So you have the full size, the GSD, which you can carry like a couple of small children on with the right accessories. I have the HSD, which for me is a little more compact, a little more maneuverable, fits in my garage a little better, that kind of stuff. And very broadly speaking, I think something I didn't mention was the modern generation of e-bikes is very much oriented toward trying to make things as easy as possible, as low barrier as possible to be able to just hop on and ride in any conditions, like you said, with the wind. That's a major barrier for most folks trying to ride someplace. Like if you're trying to go somewhere and the wind is up, it can take you twice as long on a regular bike as it does otherwise. So having the choice of like what level of e-bike assistance you want as you pedal there can be super, super valuable. The e-bikes, many e-bikes come with like better locks, like you said, for security. A lot of them come with or you can get things to make flat tires almost impossible, which for many people have had the experience of, I got a flat tire on my bike one time and I stopped riding my bike forever. Like that's a very, very common thing to have happen. And so especially with these kinds of bikes that are a little heavier and a little faster, if you do, there's a couple of different ways you can do that, but I've set mine up to be like really, really flat proof. So that's not something I have to be thinking about when I go out and ride, just the way you wouldn't think about that if you were going to drive someplace. Trying to remove mental barriers, physical barriers, practical barriers to make it easier and easier to just go, it's just as easy for me to go grab my bike, hop on it and go to the store as it would be to drive your 2-ton truck to get there. So yeah, if anybody's dying to know more about my bike, I'll show you things, but I'll hold off on that unless people have specific questions, that I'll hold.
Thanks, you guys. I actually have a quick question. And Trent had mentioned it, and I think it might be helpful. Is he mentioned classes? Would one of you talk about maybe the different types of classes of e-bikes?
Yeah, I can totally do that. Because there's classes and there's other factors also. So I think more broadly speaking, knowing like how fast you want your bike to go and how you want the pedaling experience to be are good things to have in mind. So when I talk about how fast it can go, that's classes. So class 1 means that as you approach 20 miles an hour, the e-assist will gradually stop helping you. Class 3 is that same thing happens, but at 28 miles an hour. So if you're going 18 miles an hour on your class 1 bike, it feels pretty normal. You're going 19, it starts to feel like, hey, why am I having to work harder? And when you go 20, it stops. So I don't mean it like stops the bike. It just means that it doesn't help you anymore. And all of a sudden you feel like the full force of pushing your large cargo bike or e-bike at 20 miles an hour. So that's where the limit is. You certainly can go faster than that if you want to pedal really hard or if you're coasting downhill, but that's where it stops helping. That's what class 1 and class 3 refer to. And then within those classes, there are very different behaviors as far as like how snappy or torquey or realistic the pedaling can feel. And that's something you there's a lot of details there. So I'm not going to try to, explain that just without any slides or anything. But different bikes, 2 class 1 bikes can feel radically different in terms of like how much do they help you, how sporty and how quick does it feel, depending on how that bike is designed, what its capabilities are, and what sort of ride experience that the designer thought that rider wanted to have. So just things you have to try out and see how they are. Does that answer your question, Tess?
It does. Thank you very
Okay.
much. And
Yeah.
I know as a new e-rider, it was a little overwhelming when I to look and think of what I wanted, and because there's so many choices, which is amazing, but it's kind of like, where do you start when you're trying to figure that out? And that's really helpful to know, if I'm looking to use an e-bike in a certain way, that helps me make that decision.
Yeah, and I think that's a fabulous point. And what I'd say to anybody who's thinking about like, where do I even get started? To me, the answer to that is go to a place, a friend or a shop or whatever that has an e-bike, get on one and take a few pedal strokes on it. It won't necessarily tell you everything you need to know, but it'll immediately tell you if you have questions. It'll tell you what it's basically like. And then know that whatever you ride, your friend's bike or the first bike you try to bike shop or anything like that, whatever that first thing you ride is, if you think, I'd like it to be different than this in some way, there probably is something that'll do that thing you want to do. But first try one that'll tell you so much right off the bat, and it'll get you way, way down the road in terms of trying to understand how this works and whether you're going to enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, Trent, Toby, and Jesse, thank you guys very much for all this information. It makes me excited about getting out on my e-bike. Connie, did we have any questions?
I don't see any questions. Toby, I do have a question. I was thinking that your bike actually has a built-in lock. Is that correct or not?
Yes, thank you. I was dying for someone to ask me about something about my cool bike. All right, so let's see.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and tell us the features of your cool bike?
All right, so this here is a cafe lock right there. All right, so what this is there's a key on the other side that stays in there all the time. You can't quite see it from this angle. Then let's see if I can do this, because it does require 2 hands. You turn the key on one side, you push this lever down right here, pull the key out, and now the wheel is locked and can't spin. So that's a basic, simple security that stays on the bike all the time. You don't have to carry a lock or anything. And so they call it a cafe lock because it's not the highest security in the world, but it does make it easy if you're like, I'm going in the grocery store, I don't have to find a bike rack, I can just park my bike wherever and lock it for enough security to be like, I'm in and out of this place, or where you could see it from the patio or wherever you are. In addition to that, I have this chain that goes in this handy little bag here, and you can lock that around something like so, and then plug it into the cafe lock. So it makes this big unwieldy bike very easy to lock to a thing that's a post or what have you, that's within a couple of feet of it. So very, very practical, easy to use, works great.
That's very cool. Thank you for showing that. Is there any other cool features you want to show us while you're by your bike?
One of the reasons I chose this one was because it's a little easier to store than some other choices are. It has, oops, I need to unlock my cafe lock. So cargo bikes can be pretty big, and they don't like hang on hooks very well. So if you want to get it out of the way with this setup, I can remove my little crate back here. And then this one is built in such a way that if you hold the rear brake, pull the bike backwards, it'll stand upright. So you can fit it into a corner pretty easily and make it a lot more practical, easy to live with. And then when you're ready to ride again, bring it down and you're ready to go. So for a lot of folks, that kind of storage can be a pretty significant practicality issue. And so some bikes have that sort of thing where they can either fold or they can go upright like that in order to fit it into a smaller floor space. So yeah, stands up. I got good, cool, flat-proof tires. I went and bought some really killer lights so that I'm very visible when I'm on the road. This particular bike, and different bikes will have different levels of this, but this particular bike is very adjustable. So different riders can, you can ride, somebody who's that height can ride it with the seat all the way down, or they can bring those seats way, way up like so that if you had a family where the bike was being shared by multiple riders, it'd be very easy to do that. Although my wife says she's nervous about riding. So I'm still working on the practical consideration for that one. Then you can set it up with things like this flat cargo hauler that I have back here, which you can put kind of anything you want on. There's also little kid seats. There's big open racks, flatbeds, that sort of thing. Just a million options to try to get those things set up in the way that works for a particular rider and the way they want it. So anyway, there's some cool features of it.
That's very cool. Thank you, Toby.
Yeah, thank you.
I had a question that maybe one of you all might know more about than me, but for someone who's considering to get an e-bike right now, do we know the status of the e-bike rebates? Did that ever happen, or do we know what those are?
Nothing in Indiana is the short answer to that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Sadly. Yeah. Not to be a negative Nancy about it, but there also is a chance that e-bike prices are going to go up a pretty fair amount soon due to some things related to tariffs with Chinese trade. So if you are looking at e-bike, it might be wise to shop sooner rather than later. So.
I think there is in Bloomington, Indiana, an e-bike rebate, I think. That's the only place there are several other states and cities that have them. And Jesse just put in the chat that it's in the early phases of exploring e-bike rebates in Indy. And there have been discussions with some people at the state level as well. But yeah, Denver's is the poster child for e-bike rebates, and they allocated what they thought was going to be 2 years of e-bike rebates, and it was all gone in like, I think 6 months, and it took them another year to allocate more money, and then that was gone. So it's gone, really pretty quickly. But they have a whole year's worth of data from the people who got the first set of rebates. And it really shows that people did use them instead of cars and use them for transportation and all of that. So, so there's some really good, when you're wanting to try and get rebates in your community, there's actually data that supports it for the purposes that people, governments would want to give rebates for.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, Connie, was there anything else you wanted to say at the, in terms of other events or anything before we finish up?
Just a last plug to come out to Monon and 86 and help with that project. And sign on to the letter if you're still seeing this on June 13th to support bridges and at the Monon and Nickel Plate. And support your just your local bicyclists and, you know, have great rides.
Great. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. And next month is, I'm trying to think what it is. Oh, bike maintenance. So if you want to hear about ways to make sure that your bike is ride ready, join us.
And that one is going to be done. The presentation is by Tony Chiralis, who is one of our mechanics at Bicycle Garage Indy downtown. So.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your
Thanks
day.
all. Bye.